G'day everyone. In this lesson, we will discuss different stages for development finance. So we've got a fair bit to cover, so let's get cracking. Um, so development finance is a little bit different than normal investment loan finance because it's got three different stages. The first stage is basically you are acquiring a block of land, and when you acquire a block of land, there are two different kinds of funding that you can utilize. The first one is private funding or seed capital, which is basically either you put in money into the development entity or you get your friends to put in money into your development entity, or you borrow off whoever you can borrow it from to do the development. And that portion is basically used, it's also known as seed capital, and it is basically used to fund the development approval or DA or planning permit, costs for different consultants, different reports that you require, and it is usually comes in at the conceptual stage because there's some money required apart from the land acquisition cost that you've got to account for in order to get the development up to the next stage, which is the development approval or the planning permit. So that's one part that you need to remember. The other thing is that you got to settle on a block of land. This happens usually as a retail loan because you go to a lender. You say, I'm buying this block of land. It's already got an existing house on it, and you just get a normal retail loan, and you pay installments the moment you settle on it, and you start paying installments on it. If it's going to take you a while to get your planning permit or your development approval, you can rent the house that's already on it, for example, in the meantime, so that it helps with your installments. When you are purchasing just land, the lender will only consider it if it is part of a full development loan. If it's a plain block of land, it's got nothing on it, they would actually only consider it if you want to go ahead and get plans, permits, all those things in order to do that. Now, this doesn't apply to plain blocks of land in established suburbs. However, if you go to outskirts and that's a brand new suburb that's coming in and it's totally just plain block of land, lenders will be very skeptical of lending you money against that. However, if you are right in the middle of a totally fully established suburb and it's just a plain block of land, it hasn't got anything on it, maybe the house was already demolished or so on, they won't have any issue lending you against that because they know that they can move that asset fairly quickly if things were to go south. So lenders do not like land banking loans basically, and that's why when it's a land subdivision, the lender may require you to first secure the raw land with your own money. Usually what the reason for that is that it's a land subdivision, and it's usually done in the outskirts or fringes of the urban growth boundary, and those areas are not that developed at the moment, and because you're involved in that, they would want you to put in all the money in the land. And that's why that JV with landowner actually became quite popular, because it's a very common way to do land subdivision, because there is someone who owns a block of land that is unencumbered, has had that for ages, is sitting there, and they don't have the skill. You have the skill. You come in, shake hands, and you guys do it together. They put the land up front, and you source the costs to do the land subdivision. But if you were to buy something off someone and then do a land subdivision on it, the lender will not like it if the land is not unencumbered. So they might force you to put in all the equity in and make sure to get the land totally unencumbered. The next stage that kicks in is your construction loan, and construction loan is basically an interest-only loan, and interest is often capitalized. Now, what I found is that some lenders will also finance the construction costs plus GST, and some will say, okay, we can only finance the construction costs and no GST. So you better go claim your GST fairly quickly, every quarter or every month if you're reporting monthly. I recommend, if you are in this industry, you should talk to your accountant and report BAS and GST monthly, because it helps with your cash flow. And interest is calculated on the drawn down amount. So that's a normal construction loan, and all it is that it's based on the amount that you draw down, and it is also the interest on that is also capitalized. That means there are no monthly installments once the construction loan kicks in, and the lender may or may not finance the GST costs. Usually the way they do that is if they are financing, is they'll give you two facilities. One would be your main loan account, the other one would be an overdraft facility for say 100 grand or something, and you use that 100 grand with a slightly higher interest rate, and you draw down from that separate overdraft amount, pay the GST, and you claim your GST fairly quickly, park the funds back so that you're saving on interest costs and so on. The third phase of the loan is getting a retail loan again, especially if you're developing and holding some of the townhouses that you've developed or apartments that you've just developed. And that's again back to the stage one kind of loan, which is like a retail loan, and you get an offset account. You can also get a line of credit on that. I prefer to get a line of credit because then I can access that equity again and do another project. So these are the three different stages and three different kinds of loans that are required when you're doing development finance. In the next video, I'll discuss the in-between loans that come into play when you're doing a development.